The final part of this lesson is going to be the quotient rule. And with the quotient rule, as we talked about in the previous video, it's the numerator and denominator, so it's a fraction. So you're going to take the derivative of the numerator times the denominator minus the derivative of the denominator times the numerator, all divided by the denominator squared. So here we go. Number 6 right here. So in order to figure out what the derivative is, there's two different parts. So we've got your numerator and then you've got the denominator. So to find the derivative, you're going to take the derivative of the numerator, which is 3, multiplied by the denominator, 2x plus 1, minus the derivative of the denominator, which is 2, times the numerator, which is just 3x, all divided by the denominator, 2x plus 1, quantity squared. So keep in mind that with subtraction, you are subtracting this whole piece right here from the first part. So if there were other terms next to the 3x, you need to make sure that you distribute the 2 and then make sure you distribute the negative sign. So if you want to distribute the negative 2 altogether or whatever this is right here, make sure that this is subtraction. You are subtracting. So let's see, we're going to expand this a little bit. So we've got 3 times 2x, which is going to be 6x, and 3 times 1. And then we've got minus 6x all divided by the 2x plus 1 squared. The 6x subtracts from the 6x. And then we've got 3 all over 2x plus 1 squared, and that's my final answer. And number 7 is a little bit more complicated. So the red part, that's my numerator. The blue part, that's my denominator. Hopefully that's obvious. So we've got f prime of x, so the derivative, you're going to take the derivative of your numerator, which is going to be kind of bigger than the first one. So we've got 24x to the 7th. So again, multiply and subtract, multiply and then subtract, multiply and then subtract. So you've got minus 12x to the first power, and then the 1, it's a constant, so it goes away. So that's the first part, and that is my numerator. So that's the derivative of the numerator. Then I'm going to multiply it by the denominator. So we've got 2x to the 7th plus 4x plus 2. And then you've got minus the derivative of the denominator, which is going to be 14x to the 6th plus 4, and then times the numerator. So we've got 3x to the 8th minus 6x squared plus 1, all divided by the denominator, which is squared. So we've got 2x to the 7th plus 4x plus 2 squared. Please do not think that you get to cancel these out right here. They do not get to cancel. This other one also does not have the 2x 7th plus 4x plus 2, so you cannot cancel them unless they both share the same thing. You can expand this whole thing, but this is a case where you should make sure that you multiply these two pieces together, and then you make sure that you distribute the negative signs. The negative goes to the whole thing eventually, but first multiply and then distribute. So you can expand that if you want for practice on algebra skills. We're going to go and do more calculus though. For number 8, we've got to find f prime of -1 if f of x equals this. So again, we've got a numerator and a denominator. So to find the derivative, you're going to take the derivative of the numerator, which is going to be 2x minus 2. So again, quick product power rule, multiply, subtract. Multiply, subtract. Derivative of the numerator times the denominator minus the derivative of the denominator times the numerator, all divided by the denominator, which is 4x minus 1, and then squared. So from here, you can just pop in that -1. Make sure it's a -1 and not a +1. -1. So let's see. We've got 2 times -1 minus 2 times 4 times -1 minus 1 minus 4 times -1 squared is 1, and then minus 2 times -1, so that'll be plus 2, divided by 4 times -1 minus 1 So that'll be negative 5 squared eventually. So from here, it looks like we've got negative 4 times negative 5, which is positive 20. And then we've got minus 4 times 3, so we've got minus 12, all divided by 5 squared, negative 5 squared, which is positive 25. So we've got 8/25 as our final answer. In number 9, it says if f of x equals 6x divided by a plus x cubed, where f prime of 0 equals 3, then a equals, so we're going to treat a like a constant. So we're going to take the derivative of f, so you've got the derivative of the numerator times the denominator minus the derivative of the denominator. Now when I take the derivative of a constant, it's going to go away, so we're left with 3x squared times the numerator divided by the denominator squared. Now you're going to plug in 0 anywhere that you see an x. So you've got f prime of 0 equals, let's see, we've got 6 times a plus 0 minus 3 times 0, and then times anything else is going to be 0. And then divided by a plus 0 squared. Now keep in mind that the problem told us that f prime of 0 equals 3. So I can replace f prime of 0 with 3. So we've got 3 equals, that'll be 6a over a squared, which means that we've got 3a equals 6, and therefore a equals 2. And that's my final answer. Number 10. So for number 10, this is a little bit tricky based on what the notation is. But essentially, we're given all these givens, right? U of 4 equals 3, U prime of 4 equals 2, V of 4 equals 1, V prime of 4 equals 4. Now, what this is asking us to find is the derivative of u over v, and then evaluate the derivative of u over v at x equals 4. So in order to find the derivative, you're going to take the derivative of the numerator times the denominator minus the derivative of the denominator times the numerator, all divided by the denominator squared. So then it's just replacing. So it told us that u prime of 4 equals 2. So I'm going to replace u prime of 4 with 2. V of 4 is 1, so I'm replacing v of 4 with 1 minus. Now it says that v prime of 4 is 4, and then u of 4 is 3, all divided by v of 4, which is 1 squared. So you've got 2 minus 12 divided by 1, so my answer is negative 10. On the next one, on my green one, they want us to find the derivative of u times v at x equals 4. So right here, this is product rule. You're going to take the derivative of the first times the second plus the derivative of the second times the first. And then you're going to substitute the information back in. So u prime of 4 is 2, v of 4 is 1, plus v prime of 4 is 4, times u of 4, which is 3. So you've got 2 plus 12, which equals 14. Next up, this is a little bit tricky. Now, I want you to think, when you take the derivative of a number next to what the variable is, it's going to become that number, right? Well, because we don't know what the derivative of, like how high u is, as far as derivatives go, we're just going to leave this as 2 and then u prime. So it's going to become 2 u prime evaluated at 4. And then we've got minus 3, and then that'll be v prime of 4. So again, whenever you are taking the derivative of a variable, you have to think about taking that number. The 2 gets multiplied by whatever the exponent is. Right now, I don't know what it is, so we're just leaving it as u prime and v prime. So we've got 2 times u prime of 4 is 2 minus 3 times v prime of 4. The answer was 4. So you've got 4 minus 12, which equals -8. And finally, we've got 2v over u, and then we're evaluating at 4. So this is going to be quotient rule. And it's kind of similar to that last one where that 2, that number in the front, it's going to be carried on through it because I'm going to multiply it by the derivative, which happens every time if you think about power rule. You take the number in front and you multiply it by the derivative of that variable. It just carries on down. Now you don't see it because it's multiplication. So we've got 2v prime of 4, so that's the derivative of my numerator, times the denominator, minus the derivative of my denominator, times my numerator, so this is tricky, 2v of 4, divided by the denominator squared. So we're going to replace. We've got the 2 there. V prime of 4 is 4. U of 4 is 3 minus U prime of 4 is 2 times the 2 that's already given. V of 4 is 1 divided by U of 4, which is 3, and then we've got to square it. So you've got 2 times 4, 8 times 3, 24, minus 2 times 2 times 1, which is 4, all divided by 9, which means that we have 29ths as my final answer. And last but not least, number 11. So in here, we have to find the initial position, the initial velocity, and then v of 1 minus v of 0. Whenever you're finding the initial position, you're finding when t is 0. That's what initial position is. An initial velocity, you're just finding when t is 0 for both of those. And I've got space in the back of the very last page of your packet on page 20 if you wanted to put with that really important vocabulary is initial position is when t equals 0. The initial velocity is when t equals 0. Whenever you're using 0 and plugging it in for t. So the initial position is going to be 0 minus 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 0 plus 1. Essentially, we've got 1 times 1, which just equals 1. To find the initial velocity, you're going to have to take the derivative of position. So we've got s prime of t is velocity. The derivative of the position function is velocity. So you're going to split this up. So we've got a first and a second. You're going to take the derivative of the first times the second plus the derivative of the second times the first. So we've got this crazy long 6t minus 2 times 2t cubed minus t plus 1 plus 6t squared minus 1 times 3t squared minus 2t plus 1. Now, in order to find the initial velocity, you're plugging in 0 for t. So you've got 0 minus 2 times 0 minus 0 plus 1. So essentially, we've got negative 2 times 1, which is 2. And then we've got plus 0 minus 1 times 0 minus 0 plus 1. So you've got negative 1 times 1, which is going to be minus 1. So I forgot a negative sign on the first one. So we've got negative 2 minus 1, which equals negative 3 as my initial position. Finally, we need to figure out what v of 1 minus v of 0 is. So we already figured out what v of 0 is. We found it in the previous problem. It's negative 3. The next thing that we have to do is figure out what v of 1 is. So v of 1 is found by plugging in 1 into all the t's on the previous part. So when you're plugging in all your t's, you should have, plugging in all your 1's, you should have 6 minus 2, 4. And then you've got 2 minus 1 plus 1. So you've got 4 times 2, which is 8. And then we've got plus 6 minus 1, 5 times 3 minus 2 plus 1, which is 2. So we've got 18 as our answer for v of 1. So now my final answer, 18 minus negative 3 equals 21.